are you?
Hello?
Hello, Jughead. This is Archie. Come over right away. It's a matter of life or death.
Oh, relax, Archie.
Attention, all true believers. Marvel Comics is on the air.
A friend of the unfortunate, enemy of criminals. In reality, Dan Garrett, a rookie patrolman, loved by everyone but suspected by none of being the Blue Beetle.
Boys and girls, your attention, please. Presenting a new exciting radio program featuring the thrilling adventures of an amazing and incredible personality. Faster than an airplane, more powerful than a locomotive, impervious to bullets.
Up in the sky, look!
It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman!
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi, everybody. No, we didn't start an hour early so you could see my cool sweater. We have an extra special show happening right after this one that you should not miss.
It's true. It has consumed most of my life today. It's been a whole thing.
Been a whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important to the comic book world. You've probably seen the news about it. We're doing an actual show with actual facts and actual people that work in the industry and not people just talking out there. Hoo-ha. But we still have comic books that we wanted to read this week, and there's some doozies that release, and we did not want you guys to miss out on those things. So, hi, Dan. Triple B's in the house. Kenneth. No.
It's true. So, should we get right to our books, or should we talk about everything that's been going on and the insanity of the day?
Well, we can at least give them an idea of what it is. Okay, so if you live under a rock or you don't really just follow the comic book industry in general, Diamond Comics, which was for the longest time the sole distributor of comic books, and now it is not any longer, but it was a company that helped a great many retailers make it through tough spots, and has served us well for a long time, but things have changed. They declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy today, which means that they're going to reorg. So it allows them to protect their business. So it doesn't mean that there's not going to be comics coming out, etc. But it does explain in some small way why things have been a little bit slow coming out from them. So we are, in the next hour, going to have experty people come in and explain what that means to you.
Right. And the fact that I'm lumped in with those experty people shouldn't in any way take away from the fact that the other people know what they're doing. I'm just there to press buttons.
That's right.
So now let's get to the books.
Boxes! Oh, this was really cool, y'all. Okay. Because of everything that's been going on today, I kept my books in front of me so that I could not get them mixed up and explain one book as being something that happens in a different book. We don't want that. Okay. So this one's really cool. So if you like history, and maybe a little bit like you are in love with museums and that kind of stuff, this is a really cool book for you. So this deals with an object called El Carzone, which left the island of Puerto Rico long ago and has ended up in a private collection of a very rich guy. And he's loaned it to a museum for a big gala affair, right? There is a main character here who we meet as a young lady who's applying to, what she wants to work at the museum as curator, etc. And so you didn't meet her. She's got this interesting relationship with her, I think it's her grandmother, who basically says, why aren't you just staying here and contributing, and just, you don't have to do anything fancy, just be here for your culture. And she's just I want to do something with my life. And so when she leaves, there's a little conflict there, but there is so much cool heisty stuff going on in this book, and a lot of cool I want to call it mysticism, because that means that it like couldn't be real, but like every culture has their like things based on folklore or religion or whatever that are integral to their everything that makes them themselves. So this is important to what is now called Puerto Rico, but used to be called something else. So if you like, sincerely, this is a perfect book for, you don't have to know anything. You have to just know that you like heisty things, thrilling movies, books that deal with, just impossible things to really kind of do any other way except for a visual medium. As you get to see about 3/4 of the way through the book, you'll see the page I'm talking about. You're like, daggum. The art in this book is so over the top awesome that some of it I feel like I want to go and try and see if I can find to buy, because it's so pretty. When you have an emotional connection to something, that's where I am with this book. This was not on my radar at all. I know the Horizon Experiment books have been kind of, and I still don't know whether the Horizon books are just all one-shots and they're just part of the big universe. Do you know?
They're one-shots.
Okay, cool. Because that's like, it makes sense, but I do kind of wish that this character got to, be the next Indiana Jones / I don't know. But anyway, this is really great.
The Manchurian, the Sacred Damned, the Moondogs, Mother Forking Monsters, and this one are all one-shots from the Horizon Experiment series.
Then definitely grab this up, because it's going to cost you whatever the cover price of this thing is, which is not much.
Right. And again, Vita Ayala and Skylar Patridge working together. Pretty good team.
Yeah. Really bright. If you like bright colors inside a book, like this cover doesn't really give it its due for what it's going to look like. That one kind of looks a little more blue. It's more green and has a little more color in it in the real. Yeah, Dan, it's really nice. Yeah,
okay. When was the last time Kyle read a Zenescope book, guys?
Since they were all about fish people.
Correct. It's been a long time. This one is not at all about fish people. But if you have trauma from an episode of Doctor Who called Blink, maybe don't read this book.
What was the other one? There was one that a follow-up one that had the little baby ones. That
one look, if you have a Weeping Angels issue, don't read this book. This is it feels like a one-shot. Mainly because it tells you that the next book in this series is a different myth. But this is the myth of the Black Angel statue, and it really is a story of like a cursed monument in a cemetery that takes on a life of its own as college kids imbue it with special powers that it may or may not actually have, and then it turns out it actually has them, and things get unhinged. There is a murder, there is deception, there is cheating, there is sex, there is all of the things. And 22 pages is the appropriate amount of pages of content for this particular story. So I enjoyed it. I would not, how do I put this? This is in Iowa, Eddie, so maybe. I would not put this in the top of the 7 books I read. It wouldn't be at the top 6. But of recent Zenescope I have read, it is certainly in the top 10, if that makes any sense. This was a week where this book really didn't shine compared to the other books I read, but it is really good for a Grim Tales of Terror book. It's a great place for this series to relaunch with Volume 5. So I liked it. I will read the next one, assuming we get the PDF of it. But like I said, this was just a week where this was a little bit of a, okay, it's a comic.
It's crazy. I know exactly where that is.
They don't mention the name, Ed. Just that it is Iowa City. Because the kids in the story are Hawkeyes.
I like stories like that where they're based in like something that actually exists. Makes it even more freaky. All right, Green Lantern Fractured Spectrum. This has a feeling of just being directly related to the books that happened before it. So I haven't read up to this. So I'm going to tell you what I learned from the beginning of this book. Something happened in which the main power battery for the Green Lanterns has been destroyed. And it turns out later on you find out that it's true for all the other lantern types. And they figured out a way around it, kind of, but they're still trying to figure stuff out. And you see him there in the bottom left corner, the only white section there. There is a new weird fractured kind of lantern called Sorrow. It appears that they know who this guy is from some other interaction, but he's kind of really scary. And I can't tell you a whole bunch more without wrecking all of the cool twists and turns here. But just know it's all the lanterns are impacted by this event. And because they're still trying to figure out the way to maybe power up a new lantern source for themselves. Emo core.
It's not phase, Mom. It's just this ring I wear.
I do know this is what I do know. Like for Green Lantern and Green Arrow, what we used to have is like almost no readership at the store. And for the last probably 6 months, maybe even like right when they started adding the Golden Age lantern stuff, and Golden Age Flash and those kinds of things. A lot of people got into it then. Then whatever happened in the Absolute Power Start got really people excited. So if you used to be a lantern reader and you were like, I don't know, I've been in there for a while, this has got promise, this little corner of the universe, because I really have seen a lot of interest in it. So you might jump in and try it. And it does have more than one of your favorite Green Lanterns. So
we don't read Ahoy books all that often, and sometimes for good reason. Sometimes they have characters with a poo emoji for a head. And yeah, that's a book. If you guys don't remember that, how Ahoy did, or one of the main characters had the poop emoji for their head. But other times we read them and they're really interesting concepts and pretty good. And this is one of those that I'm very interested to see where this concept goes. This is Howl. This is set, ironically, it's named Howl, and I have the first line of Howl tattooed on my forearm. This is set in that era of the late 50s to the 60s and early 70s in, the Village in New York, where everybody's an artist or a creative of some type. Even if they are working in an office, they're still a creative. And this is the story of this couple who, in the light of recent news things, I'm not going to use the terminology they use only because it could trigger warning people. So instead, they're a couple. They are very in love. She inspires him to write, and his career takes off where he's writing really great sci-fi short stories of the late 50s and 60s, right? Like these atomic age stories. And then all of a sudden he loses, like, he can't write anymore. And he starts to see this Dr. Morell. This book has some of that storyline in it. Like, this sort of love labors lost, sort of the inspiration behind your genius, and a little bit of Little Shop of Horrors. space alien mushrooms. I think. Because morel is a kind of mushroom, and that's the name of the doctor, and like all of a sudden people are real into mushrooms. So needless to say, I'm very interested to see where this story goes. It spends most of its time feeling like just like an unrequited love story, or a kind of a I don't understand you, you don't understand me, but when we're together, great things happen kind of story. And then it gets real mushroomy, where it's like this is how you rewire your mind, kind of mushrooms, but also like the kind that you eat. So, like, are we making tea in a special pot, or are we just eating pizza? I'm not 100% sure what this mushroom story is. So I'm interested to see.
Hey, Canadian.
Very much Inagata Davida, Eddie. So, Jen, you read this. I wanted to read this. So I forgot. I didn't notice that we didn't get any Dark Horse this week in our servers. So I had emailed Dan going, hey, man, do we not get any Dark Horse? I really wanted to read Behemoth.
Sorry. I just saw the cover and I was like, someone's got to read this thing.
Correct.
It wasn't on your list. So I was like, oh, I'll take the hit. All right. For everybody that loves themselves some kaiju, this is a straight up kaiju story. Yeah. Your main characters are a woman who owns a food truck that serves cubanos. And she seems to be very down on her luck. Like things are just going wrong for her. The truck breaks down. She needs to go to work so she can fund her, her truck. So she has like a fulfillment job a la, Amazon. It's kind of cool because it feels like it's the big city. I don't know if it's supposed to be New York, but it feels like everyone kind of knows each other and is looking out for each other. And interactions between them let you know that she's often down on her luck and they're usually, watching out for her. But also this book opens up with, ships at sea, and then a crazy thing comes out of the water in the middle of them, trying to, I think they're fishing. One's got a giant boat, one's got a regular sized boat. But anyway, this thing is huge. The Behemoth name is not, on accident. But I'm telling you that there is a thought process that happens in the last 2 or 3 pages that makes you think to yourself, wait, this could be epically cool if they keep going right where they leave the last page. I'm so excited. The cover is very spoilery, but when you don't know what you're looking at that's spoilery until you actually read the book. So yes. It is not, in my mind, it doesn't feel like just like rehashed kaiju story. It feels like they're headed somewhere that I think would be real cool.
And it's not the same book that we used to be at a different publisher. This is a whole new thing.
Mm-hmm.
The tie-in Resurgence of the Valiant Universe Bloodshot. I thought we had already resurged Bloodshot. Preston, you'd follow our social media and you'd have seen, because we made many posts. But
don't
just
social
as a note,
media shame Preston.
Click the bell on our social media so that you get notified when I make a social media post, because I'm real bad at it. So I'd really like you guys to see it. Anyway, no, I'm not shaming Preston at all. We are an hour early because we have a special show coming up after this.
No, Steve, not a Cloverfield storyline. Nope.
Okay. So back to this. I thought we had already resurged Bloodshot, and the Bloodshot parts of this were not interesting at all. The Rye parts were incredible. Like, take Bloodshot off the title and just make it Rye. Like, I'd have been happy. Instead, I'm like, it's supposed to be a Bloodshot book. So that's kind of my review for this, right? Like, skip the Bloodshot, read the Rye. The Rye stuff was like Cobra Kai meets more swords and more science fiction, supernaturally stuff that Rai is known for. And at the same time, it really was a good reintroduction to both characters, even if the Bloodshot stuff felt like, how many more times are we going to resurgence this character?
I kind of feel like these characters belong together somehow. I mean, you've got a character that is, his dad is an AI, and another character who's made of nanites. Surely these things belong together, right?
Right. And I think that's why this is the way this is, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it had been even Bloodshot Rai, I'd have been like, okay. But when I'm reading this book and I'm looking for certain things and I'm not getting them, but I'm just getting this incredible Rai story, I'm like, why do we need Bloodshot? We don't need Bloodshot. Get rid of him. You know? So that's kind of my disappointment in this book. But again, the sword fighting and the mythos behind Rai was really, really well done. So, you know, overall, this was a good book. I just thought it maybe had some details it didn't need and not enough details about a thing that was interesting.
Well, if we know Fred Van Lente, there's nothing he puts in there that's not without a purpose. I'm sure it's going to play out.
Well, and that's the other part, right? Like, I have not read every Resurgence of the Valiant Universe book. Jay has read some. There have been some we've skipped. And it's just, so again, maybe it's all necessary. And if you've read every part, maybe you'd be like, Kyle, you're a moron. And here's why. And I would be open to hearing that. Right? I'd be open to somebody explaining to me why the Bloodshot stuff isn't disappointing. Because, oh, you missed this in this other book, why you needed it. Okay, great. Let me go get that other book and read it. But this, for me, is all about Rai, and Bloodshot is just sort of there taking pages away.
Hooray. Daggum. Okay. I think probably that someone read this book a little bit earlier today and made a review for it, because we've started to have lots of calls. I actually had a call today from someone that said, hey, can I start a pull box for Ultimate Wolverine? I'm like, my friend, it is too late to start a pull box for such things. It comes out tomorrow. He said, we can get you started going forward, but those books are already headed for certain places. So I have a feeling that the market's going to get scraped for these right away, because it is the most awesome book I've read since Absolute Batman. It, you know, like, I know the story about how this book came about. It wasn't planned for the Ultimate Universe at all. And someone just said an Ultimate Wolverine book needs to happen. And so it did. But it is so awesome. Very, like, I can't believe there's not a red band. Like, the whole thing isn't red band, because it is very bloody. So extremely bloody. There are beheadings and all kinds of stuff. This is, for all intents and purposes, I feel like it's as origin-y as we might get for the character, although it was addressed a little bit in that one year-end book. This one jumps around a little bit in storyline to when they're developing him and trying to just describe how they've been trying to control him and how impossible that really is. But they've made it very clear that he cannot be killed, which is very much all the same things we know about Wolverine, right? But the way this lays out in his interaction with, we do get to see the X-Men that come and try to extract him / help him escape. He does not know who they are. And you'll see how much he doesn't know who they are. It's so good and very visual. There's some, like I was talking about my first book today, how beautiful the pages are. This is every bit as gorgeous.
I haven't bought a Wolverine book in years, but I am buying the Lee Bermejo cover of this.
Mm-hmm.
And they have already announced second printing.
Yeah, actually, as soon as I walked in the door, I told Shanice, I said, try to buy any cover we can get right now. So much silence.
Yeah. How do I explain this book without spoiling this book?
You can get people caught up for where we are.
I understand. I'm trying to come up with a look. If your dad is going to essentially be the John Constantine of the underworld, do not expect to not have some sort of family trauma. Okay?
That makes sense.
Hexiles, if you've been following along, is the story of these kids who never met their dad, but they all have different moms. And as it turns out, their dad has sold their souls to demons before they're even born. In exchange, he didn't have to go to hell and become a demon himself.
Great dad.
Come to find out that what their dad is essentially, again, he's like Constantine, except instead of using good magic and rituals and stuff, he is using dark magic and rituals to send demons back to hell and to capture and kill angels.
Oh.
Yeah. And eventually the people who give him the power call his debt, and he sells his kids to them. And so when we get to the first issue of this book, the kids are finding out that this is the case. In the second issue, these demons start to kind of exert their control, exert their power. No, this is the Hexiles, Steve. This is a Mad Cave book. Those demons start to exert their power, and it goes pretty poorly for some of them. And then in this issue is sort of a bottle issue, right? The kids finally come to understand how they got to the place they're in and start to form a plan. And the plan is a real bad plan. Like, it's not going to go well. But I'm excited to see how Cullen Bunn makes it not go well. This one's been super fun. It's super dark, and the art is particularly disgusting. To the point where I had to save a book that I hope Jay put towards the end of the PowerPoint called Spectrum for the very end because I needed something to cleanse my soul. Because I couldn't have another day where I don't feel joy after yesterday. And if this had been the last book I read, that would have been the case. I would have not been able to feel joy for 24 hours. Ooh, although if I had seen this cover, I might have felt some joy. This is gorgeous. Feels like the 90s.
Yeah, it's I don't know. We ended up with a bunch of books this week that are just visually just stunning. This one's got like, and it's not him, right? No. So you know how Darren Warren Johnson's line art is kind of like jaggedy for his edges? That's the way this kind of feels. I've started to really, really like it. Because my old favorite was Jay Lee with his tiny little thin lines. So I got to change my mind a little bit. Okay, so I actually don't know if this book is supposed to be happening in continuity with what's going on in the main universe. It feels like that's what's going on. I'm so used to Savage Land stuff being kind of like, in the, a different timeline or separate from everything that they're talking about. But this really does feel like it's post-Krakoa happenings. But I don't know where it offshoots from. Like, when did the things that happened right before this book that they explain, when did they happen and in what book? So that I can't tell you. And I apologize. But the way this works out is that Rogue, who has stolen the powers of of Miss Marvel, jumps through this weird thing called the Siege Perilous. It's an ancient magic crystal portal to the multiverse. And it spits her out in Savage Land, but also has stripped all those extra powers that she stole away from her. And so she shows up here with none powers. which is not good if you're in the Savage Land. And it's kind of like, yeah, and her clothes. There's an actual whole dialogue that is about, it's like the first half of the book is about her just trying to like survive and understand what kind of creatures are there and what she should and shouldn't do in order to like survive it. And it does address specifically her tattered clothes, which is hilarious. And so I know the cover there has Khazar on it, but I'm pretty sure we only see Khazar's tiger friend, but she can't remember his name right now. But she spends most of this book alone and or being pursued by weird kind of almost human creatures that look lizardy. And then as you can see on the front cover, Magneto shows up at some point. Basically, Rogue is just waiting for the Blackbird to show up, which seems like if they don't know where she is, and I don't even know what multiverse she's in, if she's jumped through a multiverse portal, but yeah, because it's fire, is real pretty. So yeah, I don't usually go in for these kinds of books because I feel like, okay, well, where's this going? But I feel like where it's going is important. So if you like really cool dinosaur stuff and Savage Land imagery and hot Magnetos, which I do, get this book.
Hold on.
What? You like hot Magnetos? Knew it.
Really, Jay? Really?
Yeah, really.
What, that he didn't use that cover?
There's open order J. Scott Campbell and Adam Hughes covers that are incredible.
But it's Carl Andrews.
I understand, but like the J. Scott Campbell and the Adam Hughes, how are you going to use that one and not use one of these? Oh my God.
Well, here's the deal. Not everyone ordered every cover.
That's fair. But these two were open order. They're not incentive. Usually you see Adam Hughes and J. Scott Campbell covers on things like this behind some sort of incentive structure, where it's what's the moving for? It's a 1 in 25 or a 1 in 15. Mm-hmm. These are open orders.
Oh, hey, Triple B, them's fighting words. Love me some Campbell. Why don't they have sexy Magneto covers, though? That's what I want to know.
Well, you know what? If they did, I would definitely be showing those too.
Yeah, there's no hairy-chested Magneto on those covers, so.
There is 8-bit Magneto, though, on one of these covers, which is weird. So, okay. All right. Hour of the Wolf. This book continues to get more and more batcrap crazy as the weeks go on. We now have a fuller understanding of who our hero is and what his deal is. Essentially, our hero in this book was one of the cops that were brought in by the detectives of the time to try to solve the Jack the Ripper murders. But once Jack stops happening, this guy sort of continues his beat and winds up in a situation where either he can die or he can join this organization that essentially fights this stupid painting. And he chooses that. And so we get further interactions between this guy and our main character, but also the children that have been in this book thus far take a turn that I didn't expect from them. So it's going to be interesting to see where things go from here, as it doesn't essentially line up or seem to be going the direction I thought it was going. We now have the mom, who was part of the main story, stuck in 1880s London, trying to find the right door to get back through to get out of the painting and back to her time. And we have her daughter, who has now perhaps exited the painting or has just gone deeper into the madness that is this painting. So I'm very interested to see where it goes from here. But again, I will say this to you, Mark London. If you want me to keep reading this book, you need to send me the drugs you were on while you wrote it. because I can't.
Any bats involved?
So
Good question, Eddie.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
Okay. Well, you said it was bat crap crazy. He's
What
calling
is
you
that?
on it. He's doing a callback, which is fun. Triple B inside joke. Okay. Just in case you run across the same confusion as Jay did, because he was looking up issue number 65, and you're thinking to yourself, I already got issue 65. I don't understand why I've got another issue 65 this week. This is 65 point, which is a nice thing that Marvel does to let you know that it's boom, we're stopping, dead stop in the middle of the story, and we're going to tell something that's important about it, but is not necessarily, like it's got a storytelling that it's doing, but it is its own thing. They did that with the Bay storyline too, if you guys remember the Beyond stuff. This one's called 0.5 Deaths, and that is really spoilery, all the things about that title. Okay, so I'm going to tell you some stuff that you may not know, but is important to know because it's been happening in the comic books for a little while, but you might not be privy to this. So I think it's important for you to know. So, okay, Agent Phil Coulson, who has died, spoiler alert, has been now brought back, and he is Death. So, Death, the character Death. So he's been showing up. I don't know if he's shown up in more than Spider-Man or not. That's where I've seen him the most. But I feel like he's part of another storyline that I've been reading too. Okay, so this big storyline, the 8 Deaths of Spider-Man, is Peter Parker has been chosen as our champion for an event that happens, I think they said every 1,000 years, I can't remember, in which the Sorcerer Supreme is supposed to go through this huge trial. And as right now, Doom is Sorcerer Supreme, he said, nah, I choose Peter Parker. So Pete's been doing this. The Sorcerer Supreme, who is also a ghost, I'm sorry, not Sorcerer Supreme, Doctor Strange, who is also a ghost, has provided to Peter these things that are called reeds that will bring him back to life multiple times. And as the prophecy says, at the end of these 8 deaths, he will be victorious. But he has to make it through these deaths, which is really horrible. In the last issue, cover your ears if you did not read it. In the last issue, he basically gets, how to explain it other than basically a penance stare, but it's not for things he's done wrong. It basically, he has to see every death that has ever really happened in his life and then moves forward to every death that might possibly happen. And he has to live through all of it. So think thousands and thousands of deaths. He has to live through all of that stuff. Messes him up. At the end of last issue, cover your ears if you don't want to know, he walks away. He says, I'm no longer doing this. Forget it. So this book specifically addresses the fact that he is kind of like, nope, staying home and having cereal. No. And him being told that you can't do that. Then there's no champion and the world is lost. So he's like, fine, everyone dies and I don't care anymore. I just don't want to live through the pain of it. And so this is Coulson feeling like he can talk to Peter and explain things in a way that'll get him back on track. Y'all, you're not ready for anything that happens in this book. It's so good. It's like heart-wrenching. And I love Coulson as Death very much. So there you go. You're all caught up. You don't have to buy any of the other books. You can just jump on here and enjoy the rest of the story.
Well, you should get the other books because they've been fire.
Mm-hmm. And this cover is cool.
The thing about Spectrum is I go back to the question that the artist and writers, so Rick Quinn and Dave Chisholm, when they were writing this book and leading up to the marketing of this book and all this kind of stuff, is, has a song ever saved your life? And I've told this story every time I've talked about this book, but I sent them a not short playlist of songs that at some point or another have saved my life. And the thing about it in this book is it kind of starts to talk about how at points in our lives we use music to combat trauma. And in the case of the character in the book, she uses it to combat the trauma of her father leaving her.
Okay.
And what that means is that there's a connection between the music she uses and her father leaving her. And she gets to a point in this book where she seems to be having a somewhat normal life. She's got a boyfriend she likes, and they're having an anniversary. And then it turns out that maybe her boyfriend isn't as real as she thought he was, or that she was having some sort of psychological break there as it relates to that. And the end of the book is this big twist that no, these things that made her think the things that makes her think she was crazy are the things that are actually real. And the things that made her think she was normal are the things that aren't real. And what music is real and what isn't. And the thing I found myself listening to while listening to this book were some of the psychedelic jazz era, like late Miles Davis when he was all strung out on cocaine, you know, where it was improvisational madness. And these bands from the 70s that are so overproduced that it could never be replicated. Think Nights in White Satin, you know, by groups like, you know, and groups like Steely Dan and groups like the Bee Gees and stuff, where the live show could never really hold up to the produced record, and how those songs make you feel. And what if that was your reality? What if coked out Miles Davis was how the world worked? And I really like this book. There's something about it that is just so cathartic to me. Yes, Moody Blues is a good example. And that was one of the band's names I couldn't think of. But you've got this idea of how does music make you feel? And what if the music is the thing that's centering you and not necessarily the world around you? And so I'm really enjoying this. I know there's more of a sci-fi element to this because at the end, like, there is totally perhaps a allusion to time travel. Or maybe not. Maybe it's just how a song can take you back to a time in your life when that song was important to you. Like when I hear Here's to the Nights by Eve 6 and I think about my senior year of high school. Like, is it time travel really? Or is it just a memory that feels like time travel? And that's what we're figuring out in this book. I love Spectrum, by the way. And shout out to Dave Chisholm and Rick Quinn for messing with my brain in just the right kind of way to make me, again, feel some sense of joy.
We didn't read as much this week, y'all. We weren't really 100% certain whether we were gonna still be able to bump out an hour into our broadcast day, or if we were only gonna have a half an hour. So we were planning for, you know, possibilities we wouldn't get that far out. So we're so thankful you guys are still here for us. We do really believe that the next hour of content is super important, and it's gives you a lot of insight into what the comic book industry is up against and what we deal with all the time. And I know everyone here probably has had a dream of owning a store at one time or the other. It is a good dream to have, but it is kind of cool to get into the weeds with people that work in the industry, because it's sometimes different than what you think is going on. So,
right, it's true. In that show, again, you may have heard the voice of God come through my computer and through my microphone a little bit. They are in the other studio getting ready for that show. We are working through the data and the slide deck and things that we're going to be presenting in that show. I will say this. A lot of our shows on the EXP tend to be a little more lighthearted. This one's going to be a little more serious. We're going to definitely make jokes because that's who we are as people. But I mean, me and Brian Garside and Adam getting together, Adam Freeman, are going to make jokes. Brian and I talked more about wrestling than we did about Diamond while we were planning this show earlier. So just know this is going to be a little more serious than a lot of our shows here on the Experience, especially when you consider how surreal the show after it is going to be. But like I said on my little brief live I did earlier, there is not going to be celebration of this here on the Experience. It's not something we're going to do. This is a tenuous moment. There will be a lot of conversation about it. There is nothing here to be celebrated, only stories to be looked at to figure out how we've gotten here, and evidence and data to look at to see where we go from here.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a moment. This is not an end or a beginning. It's just a moment along a path. And that's the big thing I want to throw out there again.
Yeah. And as far as we know, everything's going to look the same at your local comic shop. So still support them with orders and make sure you get in touch with them about some of the stuff you saw today. If you're really interested in it, it will make them happy to hear that the buzz is going for these awesome books. If you don't have a local comic shop, you certainly can join a live show and claim things today, or go to a local comic shop wherever you are. And as Kyle likes to say, use the 5 digits, but it's a zip code. So anyway, at comicshoplocator.com.
Type in the numbers of the place where you are. Stand in the place where you live and hit allow this to use my location.
Yeah, that works. Definitely.
Look, guys, the biggest thing you can do for your local comic shop right now is to not stop going. It's to not miss out, to just stay there, and then use information from shows like this and order up on Fridays, the Final Order Cutoff Show, to keep placing your orders, to keep your comic shop abreast of the things you want, to keep them aware of what you're into so that they can take care of you even when things are up in the air for them. The more information they have, the easier it is for them to manage. So,
yeah.
Miss Jen, if you don't have anything that you want to sort of throw on folks, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up so I can get over there and get that show ready. Okay. Stay tuned in about 10 minutes from now for that show, and we will see everybody next time here on the EXP.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the Experience is all the time.